Hi guys, it's Lisa Unger, and here I am again with another episode of Three Good Things. And today is a special international edition. I'm speaking with Poppy G, the author of this wonderful novel, Vanishing Falls. Hi Poppy, how are you?
Hi, Lisa. I'm great. How are you going?
Oh, very well. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about where you are and how things are for you right now.
So I live in Brisbane, which is in Queensland in Australia, and I grew up in Tasmania, so I spent most of my life there. But I moved up to Brisbane to go to university when I turned 18. That's where I met my husband, and then I've sort of stayed here ever since. We've moved around a bit. We lived in Switzerland for a while, and we lived in Edinburgh and Sydney for about 5 years, but we certainly came back here. And I sort of said when we did move back here, I said to Bill, I'm just coming back for 2 years and then we need to go back to Sydney. And that was 14 years ago. So I think we're here now. We love it. It's beautiful. I think it's a bit like Florida, possibly. It's very tropical, very jungly, lots of rainforests.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the same thing happened to me. I was living in New York City, and then with my husband, we moved to Florida, and I said, okay, let's go to Florida, but we're, a couple years max, and then we have to go back to the Northeast, and that was 20 years ago. So something.
I know. It gets harder and harder to make the move, I think. So
it does, because like in the summer, there are certain months in the summer in Florida where you're just like, it is too hot to be alive. You just really feel like this is not normal or right for people. But then the heat breaks and you have these like magnificent winters, and then a kind of amnesia sets in. You forget about the summer. You're like, oh, it was fine. I was just.
It's funny here, whenever we get so used to, like, it's the middle of winter today and it's quite mild and warm, but often as soon as that the heat comes in November, December, everybody is actually genuinely shocked. We say to each other, it's so hot, but we can't believe it.
Oh, exactly. It's exactly the same here. So I guess but there's something about it because we stayed, right? So it obviously isn't that bad.
No.
But just sort of I know that Brisbane is a lot like Florida in that it's just incredibly beautiful. That's the other thing about it. It's just that there's like this kind of, to Florida, there's like this wild, savage beauty to it, that you just kind of, that if you did leave, you would be bereft after a certain amount of time. You would miss that, that lush tropical environment.
Absolutely. I love it. So Brisbane is a city that's sort of built around this winding river, and it's sort of built on mangrove swamps, and it's quite hilly as well. But if you sort of drive an hour outside, you can visit the most amazing waterfalls and beaches and islands. And weekends are like where you would book a vacation rather than just pop out for the day. We're pretty lucky, even though I did want to move back to Sydney. Sydney's pretty good too, though.
Yeah, Sydney's pretty awesome too. I can see the allure back to Sydney. And isn't Steve Irwin Zoo quite near where you are?
Yes.
We went there when we were in Brisbane. We went to Steve Irwin Zoo, and that was like one of the most amazing experiences.
It is a beautiful zoo. Yeah. Did you cuddle koalas and feed kangaroos and do all that?
We did all of that. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was fantastic. And my friend Gregg Hurwitz, who's a fantastic writer, he was also there, and so he came and did all of these like sort of adventure things with us. And we have this funny joke that we still tell when we're out on the road together, that my daughter Ocean was quite young, and so we were in with the koalas, and I turned around and she had like sort of picked up a stick, and she was like poking this poor koala who just was kind of very languidly looking at her like, what are you doing? And so I said, Ocean, we do not poke koalas. And And Greg thought this was like the funniest thing he'd ever heard, as if this was like some long-standing rule that we had in our family where, we had to come up with a rule like that we don't do this. And so now we always sign. And then later on I had said, we have changed our official policy. We now do poke koalas. So that's how we always sign off. We do poke koalas on our emails.
I'm sure the koala wouldn't have minded. They're so docile.
I know, they're so chill.
As long as you didn't poke a crocodile, that's when you'd want to be a bit nervous.
Right. Well, we have some experience with crocodiles and alligators here in Florida, so we know to stay away from those at least. Well, so I'm thrilled that you came on to talk about your 3 good things. This is like sort of my, mission to put some positivity into the world. And we're all sort of in various states of kind of in quarantine, coming out of quarantine, like trying to deal with the new normal. But most of us, I know you, Poppy, I listened to a podcast featuring you before our interview. I know that you've been a writer and a reader all your life, much the way I have. So I was wondering, is there a book that you sort of like a beloved book that you kind of return to again and again for comfort, or is there just something right now that is really transporting you?
Well, I actually am a bit of a comfort reader. So there are certain books that I go back to and read 10, 12, 15 times.
Yeah.
And still get just as much pleasure out of them as I did the first time. So one that I love is Notes on a Scandal. Have you read that one?
I haven't.
Oh, I just love it. And there's a movie too, so you can, there's 2 things to look forward to. Okay. The main character is Barbara, and she befriends another teacher at the school where they work. It's set in the UK. And she becomes this obsessive friend and a stalker, and it's so creepy. And the way that the author is called Zoe Heller, the way that she writes Barbara, if you met Barbara, you probably wouldn't like her, but she's, as a character, you cannot get enough of her, and she does all these creepy things. She's quite dreadful, but I just love it. It's kind of like a thriller, but a very sort of slow-moving, character-driven. It's a character portrait of a stalker. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, I'm so gonna read that. How old is it? Is it like an older title?
I feel like it is probably maybe about 15 years old, and in the movie, Barbara is played by Judi Dench.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of gives you an idea. She's
right.
Yeah.
That sounds right up my alley. I'm gonna definitely check that out.
Yeah, I would highly recommend it. And the book I went to, a book that I've just read and loved, is an American book by Carly White. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And it's called The Monsters We Make. And what I found really intriguing about that initially was the backstory of it. I'm sure you've probably heard of it. It's she was inspired by the photographs of missing children that were put on milk cartons. Do you remember years ago they used to put the missing children on the milk carton? Yeah. And they stopped doing it because apparently it was terrifying children at the breakfast table when they saw these milk cartons.
That makes sense.
Understandably. So yeah, this author Carly White has written it's a story inspired by those missing. So the first boy that was on the milk carton was a paper boy who disappeared while he was doing his paper run in, is it Des Moines? How do you say that word?
Des Moines.
Mm-hmm. Des Moines. Yeah. And he disappeared without trace, never to be seen again. So she has written a sort of character-driven psychological thriller about paper boys disappearing in this sleepy little town, and it's beautifully written. Yeah,
that sounds great. Sounds excellent. Yeah, that's so funny. Oh, well, not funny, but my book Beautiful Eyes was actually inspired by maybe you don't have them there, but here we would get the flyers in the mail. Like on one side there's an advertisement, on the other side there's a picture of a missing of a missing child, and often their age graduated, so that a child had been lost and never found. And so I picked one of these out of the mailbox one day, and I had this odd thought that what if I looked at this and recognized myself?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's such a great idea.
And that was the inspiration for Beautiful Eyes.
Mm.
So that's an interesting contrast, and I hadn't heard that about that book, so I'm excited to check that out as well.
It's so interesting where these ideas for these novels come from, isn't it? When you
Yeah.
sort of get that spark. But certainly it's a very creepy thing when you see someone that's missing. I think no matter who you are, whether you're a writer or anyone, your imagination runs wild.
It definitely does, and I think it's super interesting when you sort of get into the research on missing persons, which I've done quite a lot of research just to know how many, there's such a large percentage of people that go missing and that are just never found, not just children, but just people. And there's and it's not really, for an adult especially, it's not, for an adult it's not a crime to walk away from your life, and people do it. People just kind of get up and walk away from their lives. And so when investigating a missing person, those cases, they go cold pretty quickly, because there's really no, if there's no evidence of foul play, then it just kind of fizzles out, and there's no budget, and if there's nobody pushing for that investigation, then that person just kind of stays missing. And that's always difficult for me. Like, I always find myself sort of in mental overdrive trying to understand that.
Oh, it would be horrific. A teacher from my high school vanished into the Tasmanian forest a few years ago.
Oh.
And he was walking with his wife, and then he was the English teacher. He was a beautiful man, and he had some medical issues, and he what did he do? The dog ran ahead, and the wife followed the dog, and then when she got the dog, I think she came back and she couldn't find her husband. So they don't know if he chose to wander off or if he just wandered off because of his medical conditions, but he has never been found.
Oh, he's never been found. And so they were just they were in a very sort of wild, natural area.
So most of the forest in Tasmania is quite wild and remote. And if you go for a hike, there's usually a little hut at the start with a book where you're supposed to write your details down, the time and who's in your group, and always carry supplies and things. But because it's so remote, and because these forests, they don't grow up, they grow across. So if you're in the forest, a helicopter can't see you if it's looking for you.
Right.
It's quite dense. So it's funny. One thing I thought of recently is often I think in Australian books, Australian literature, the forest and the outback, it's this hostile, menacing place that could swallow you up, and it's quite scary. But in quite a few American books I've read, and I'm thinking of the Crawdads, the wilderness is this amazing place of sanctuary and respite.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sweeping generalisation, but certainly I think Australian authors seize on our wilderness as something that is a place of menace.
Right. Yeah, and I think that I think that it's nature themes like in Crawdads, that it's really some of the most beautiful nature writing that has been done. And it's like sort of the swamp for her is kind of like it's like almost like a womb, like it ensconces her, that's where she's at her, that's where Kaya is like sort of at her safest, but I think that also too, you do find quite a few American thrillers that are set in the wilderness that also have that kind of pervasive sense of menace, and if not menace, then indifference. That's kind of what I perceive, especially in old growth forests. It's sort of the imperviousness of it, or the eternity of it. It's stood and watched as we've done our damage to the planet and to each other. And it's like it's a perpetual watcher, which I guess in and of itself is a little bit creepy.
Certainly, yeah, yeah.
We find ourselves right now, for some reason, I'm not sure why, but we find ourselves watching all of these kind of documentaries about that and these shows about that, about people who just kind of go out into the wild. There's one on the, I think it's on the, I'm not sure what station it's on, but it's called Alone. And it's about, these, maybe 8 people, they all get basically dropped off in the wilderness. And it's up to the last person to survive, or the last person to call out, basically, like to call for help, wins. And so it's like all
Good idea. And are you quite alone?
I would be, yeah, they're totally alone. They get to bring like 5 things, and they have this satellite phone, and they have the gear to set up their camera and stuff like that. So I would definitely be the first one. I would be like, you know what, this is not working out. I gotta go. I gotta go. So yeah, that's kind of, but we find ourselves right now just weirdly drawn to that type of watching, and all forms of nature documentaries. Like we've just kind of hypnotized ourselves last night with like a documentary on hummingbirds, which is like my current obsession. But is there anything that you're watching right now that's kind of transporting you, or is there something that's like beloved that you guys go back to again and again when you just need a little bit of comfort?
Well, for us, our local cinema opened up in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So that was exciting. I love going to the movies. And I took my husband on Friday night. We went and saw a movie for the first time in ages, Unhinged, which has Russell Crowe in it. It's a scary movie, and so it was a bad move for date night because my husband hates scary movies.
He does?
And hates them. He's got a weak constitution. It actually makes him want to vomit as he's watching. So I knew it was going to be a bit scary. I didn't realize how scary it was. It was horrifically scary. Oh. Yeah, it was bad. And I kept looking at Bill saying, we can walk out if you want. But it's the cinema where you order dinner and a glass of wine and they bring it to you.
Yeah, we have those too.
Really leave. Yeah. Oh, it's so lovely. Yeah. We couldn't leave. We were waiting for our dinner. So poor Bill had to sit through that. It was not the best date night that we've ever had. But I love a scary movie. And I saw another one on Stan. It was called Relic.
And it's I just saw that. I mean, I didn't see it, but I saw the ad for it. I was like, ooh, that's good.
It's spooky. Yeah. So grandma has disappeared from her house.
And right, grandma disappears. That's always a...
Yeah, then she returns and they don't know where she's been, and all these creepy things start happening. Okay. So it's kind of like a haunted house type psychological thriller. I watched that. I was home alone because my husband doesn't like scary movies. I waited till he took the kids away for the night. They went camping and I watched it, and again, I was so scared. And then I went to bed and I'm alone in this old creaky house. And every noise, I love scary movies. I don't know why, because afterwards I couldn't sleep.
Yeah, yeah. I like scary movies too. Always. Lately, I've had a little bit more like of an appetite for just kind of funny things. Just things that are fun. We just recently rewatched Moonstruck.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Which is such a great movie. It was actually Jilly McMillan who I did a 3 Good Things interview with her, and she brought it up as one of her movies that she kind of goes back to and watches over and over again, like with her daughter. They like watch and rewatch it, and I was like, oh, we have to watch it, and we just like loved watching that.
Yeah, it's fun when you can watch something with the whole family. We've watched The Babysitter Club. Have you seen?
We haven't seen it, but I was thinking that would be a good thing for us to watch.
Perfect. So my daughter chose it. She's 13. And so we watched, and then I was surprised the 2 little boys, one's 11 and one's 4, everybody came and everyone was looking forward to the next episode. And it was very interesting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's great. We definitely have to check that out. Well, I mean, so we've all been like sort of home a lot over the last few months. And so, most of us are doing a lot of cooking. We're all, in my family, we're all cooks, my husband mainly, but my daughter loves to cook and I do as well. So, Is there anything that, that you guys kind of, is there like a comfort meal that as a family you're like, okay, everybody's had a bad day, we need to have this? Or is there like just something that's a go-to and it's like, okay, everything's so crazy, let's just do this kind of a thing?
I love cooking, Lisa, but I'm not an accomplished chef. And probably a lot of the meals that we do are like spaghetti bolognese, tacos,
Yeah.
things that everyone will eat and complain about. I
Yeah.
did a roast last night. That was delicious. We had roast lamb.
Mm.
But I think one thing that came out of we had a 9-week lockdown, so we were at home for 9 weeks,
Yeah.
where my children started to cook. And so on Sunday, coming up on Sunday is Father's Day in Australia.
Yeah.
And so we're preparing a nice breakfast for my husband. And so Scarlett, my daughter, who's 13, she's going to make a beautiful omelette, which is something that she started doing during the lockdown, and she can do it all by herself. She does everything. And then my son, Miles, is obsessed with smoothies. So he's invented a smoothie called Banana Buzz, which has got cinnamon and ice cream. And
Wow.
And my little boy Teddy wants to make pancakes for Dad. So we'll have this big buffet breakfast that we make ourselves. But I think that was one of the nice things being all at home together was cooking together, because we had so much time.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I do love cooking. I don't love cooking at 5 o'clock at night when it's this rush and you don't know what you're going to make.
I know, that's so true. Yeah, I really enjoyed that too about this time, is that like I realized, before it was just it was just a constant like constant rushing around, from this activity to that activity. And, between my work and my travel schedule and, my daughter and all of her like many activities, we were just kind of in this like, maybe not really even noticing, just how, hyper busy or busy addicted it felt, And so now that things have kind of, slowed down and kind of stayed slowed down, certainly we're not, we're ready for, some of those things to come back, but I want to be really mindful about how we re-enter the world.
Yes.
I want to take some of the, like this has been a really challenging time and a really dark time for many, many people. And I feel like if you've had a moment to pause and you haven't been, touched by by the tragedy of it, personally, then you kind of owe it to yourself and to the world, I think, to kind of really reflect on what good might come forward from this moment. Like I really just feel that very, very powerfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is because it's something you can sort of see in hindsight. I think when you're in the middle of it trying to, like when the lockdown began, it was so confusing and bewildering.
Yeah.
So frightening. Yeah. And especially, like it's worse for some people than it was for others, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of my parents-in-law who live alone. Like they were terrified.
Yeah.
But yes, as we sort of, the world will improve. Everything's going to get better. I think it's really important to reflect on how we can do things better in our own life. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for the planet, for the world, like this pause has been, very healing in some ways for some of our natural environment, and I think it's important to sort of acknowledge that. Obviously the planet is speaking to us. If you don't know that, then you might not be paying you might not be paying attention. Between the pandemic and the huge storms and the fires everywhere, and obviously it's got something to say, and I think we should all be listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, again, Poppy, Vanishing Falls, I'm absolutely loving this book. It's so beautifully written and so gripping and just really character driven. And, I'm just enjoying it so much. And I know that everybody is going to really love it. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your time. It's such a lovely thing to be able to get to know you like this.
Oh, Lisa, I am over the moon to be sitting here talking to you today. And I just hope all your fans who are watching realize how generous and kind you are. For me, as an emerging writer over here in Australia, I'm just so honoured and feel so lucky that you invited me on your show. And I think you're always so generous with reading people's manuscripts and writing those blurbs that you do. And there's so much that you do behind the scenes for other authors. And yeah, I think you're wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Oh. That's really sweet. Thank you. Thank you. I do, you know, I feel like in my career, a lot of people, you know, went out of their way to help me, you know, and give me a hand and give me a leg up. And I've had so many supportive people in my life and, you know, and in my work. And I just really want to, you know, as much as I can, I want to be able to give that to other people as well. You know, I feel like that's a really important, you know, thing that I can do and give to my fellow authors. And, you know, I love, and the selfish thing about, you know, Three Good Things is that, like, you know, usually I'm out on the road a lot, you know, at conferences and, you know, traveling. And so I get to meet people like you and hang out with you and talk with you maybe on a panel or whatever. But now in this way, I get to like reach out and say, hi, do you want to come on my show and hang out with me for a little while? And so I'm getting to connect in a new way, not just with my, you know, my good friends who I've, you know, done a lot of videos with.
That's all fun.
Just because we want to hang out, but now making new friends as well is such a gift of this moment.
Well, I've loved talking to you, and I've loved watching your show and meeting all the other authors that you've invited on. So it's great what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks for being here. And again, it's Vanishing Falls. Don't miss it. Such a great book. And Poppy, I'm sure we will meet again and talk again soon.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.